Hey, dream drivers. Along the dream driving journey, what kind of legal mistakes should we be avoiding? And how do we ensure we're building and driving dreams that won't hurt us legally in the long run? On today's episode, you're going to find out. Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, dream drivers. Welcome to episode 187 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Jaia Thomas, a Los Angeles-based sports, entertainment, and intellectual property attorney. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about legal mistakes that we dream drivers should be avoiding and how we as creatives can make sure that we are building and driving dreams that are legally sound. So let me tell you a little bit more about Jaia. Ever since she was a young adult, she had a passion for social justice and discovered that law was a way for her to pursue her interests and passions. Jaia shares her journey to pursuing a law career and how she was able to overcome things that we all face, such as fear and doubt. And she opens up about the challenges she faced as both a lawyer and entrepreneur. We're going to discuss why she bought a one-way ticket to Los Angeles to pursue her dreams, things that we need to keep in mind as we're navigating entrepreneurship, the top legal mistakes to avoid when you're growing your brand, especially if you're a creative, how to find the right legal representation, and why it's so important to have diversity in the entertainment industry. I am telling you that this episode is going to leave you with so much knowledge, so definitely get a pen and paper, have your notes out on your phone or wherever you're listening so that you can remember and retain all the information you'll learn today. All right, so one big ask that I have of you guys this week. I have currently launched a Dreams and Drive listener feedback survey, and I would love to get your response. If you want to help me out and you want to tell me about what your favorite episodes were or any type of other feedback that you want to leave, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/survey, dreamsanddrive.com/survey in order to fill it out. At the end of the month, I am going to select 2 listeners to win Dreams and Drive Visa gift cards. So please help us out. Help us make Dreams and Drive better. Help us really make sure that the content that we're delivering in 2019 is helpful to you all along your journeys. As always, please make sure that you are sharing this episode on social. I love seeing when you guys are sharing on Instagram stories, via screenshots, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Tag us. We are Dreams and Drive across the board, and you can use the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well. All right, let's get to the episode. Hope you enjoy. So let's get it started. You know, I like to go back in time. Who was Jaia the young child? Like, what was inspiring you back in your hometown of Cincinnati?
As you mentioned, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I think as a child, what inspired me most was my parents. So my dad is an entrepreneur as well. Growing up, he owned radio stations. And so I think just seeing him as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, I've always been inspired by that. And even as a young child, I was starting businesses when I was like 10, 11 years old. Before I could even work, I was starting businesses out of my parents' house. So,
what kind of businesses?
A little bit of everything. So, one of my first businesses was actually a newspaper. Like I started, I'm going to show my age here, but we had like a typewriter and I would like type out different articles from like the encyclopedia and like come up with crossword puzzles and like sell the newspapers to like people in our neighborhood, like my parents' friends. And it was like a newspaper I would put out like every 2 weeks that I would just sell to people. And they were so nice. They gave me like $10, $20 for like one newspaper.
Wait, what? Where were you living? Yeah. Listen, I couldn't get more than like 25 cents from my neighbors.
I think they're probably like, oh, she's cute. She's trying to sell a newspaper at 11 years old. But I would just kind of like create articles and like put them in this newspaper. And I did this for like maybe like 4 or 5 years during the summer. I didn't do it like during the school year, but in the summers, I would like write these newspapers and sell them. So that was one of like the first businesses. And then just like little other things like here and there throughout elementary school and junior high school. But my dad was definitely a huge inspiration, just seeing him own businesses and kind of be his own boss. And also as a Black entrepreneur, seeing him hire other Black people, and also giving Black folks a voice. He owned radio stations. So through that platform, he was really able to give Black people a voice in the city. He was a huge inspiration. And then my mom was also a huge inspiration. She's a licensed social worker. And so her whole life has been dedicated to helping people. And I've been inspired by her to also help people through my law practice, through a lot of the community service that I do. But I've always been inspired by her to give back and to help people who have a hard time helping themselves.
Was the dream always to be a lawyer?
It was.
Okay.
I wish I had a better story, but from when I was young, I was always like, the dream was a little longer. When I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and a judge. And, it was like 20 things, but it was all in the realm of the legal industry.
Okay, well, that there's nothing wrong with having that one dream and it actually coming true, because I feel like that's I feel like that's something that a lot of us don't talk about. Sometimes we talk about people who had one dream and then it changed, but it must feel good to know, like, to look back and be like, wow, the young Jaia would be so proud of who I am because I actually accomplished what it was that I said I wanted to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I always said I wanted to be a lawyer, and I really stuck with it throughout high school, college, the whole ride.
Did you know what type of lawyer that you wanted to be? Because I feel like that's something that I know when I was younger, when I heard my friends saying, I want to be a lawyer, I didn't say, so you want to be an entertainment lawyer? Like, I wasn't very specific.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually wanted to be a civil rights lawyer.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting.
Yeah, something very different from what I do now. But growing up in Cincinnati is a city that is about 47% Black. And it's a city that's always had a lot of like racial issues and racial problems. So I've always been kind of very like hypersensitive to issues pertaining to race. And so from a young age, I wanted to be a civil rights lawyer and really kind of speak up for people who look like me and be an advocate for them. And also the first attorney I interned for back in Cincinnati did a lot of civil rights work too. And I was just amazed by him.
So thinking about your road to becoming a lawyer, like what were the steps that you had to take, or what were the steps that you put into place so that you can make that dream a reality?
So there's definitely kind of, I wouldn't say a set path per se, but like definitely certain steps you have to take to become a lawyer. And I kind of just followed those steps throughout. So right after high school, went to college, majored in political science because that's what everyone says lawyers should major in. When in actuality, you don't have to major in political science, but did that, and also took a semester off from college and worked in Washington, D.C. I went to college in New York, but I took a semester off to go to D.C., work on Capitol Hill, intern for a congresswoman. And then straight from college, we went straight to law school. I didn't want to take any time off. I kind of wanted to just go straight through, get it over with, and took the bar, and have been practicing ever since.
So let's talk about the first law job that you had. Did you love it or did you hate it?
Oh, hated it.
That's always that's really a pivotal point, right? Because that could have made you say, hey, I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm about to go be a chef or something. So walk us through that moment.
Yeah. So my first, I guess, like a legal law job. My first year of law school, I spent a summer working at a big law firm. And my mom always says, never use the word hate, but I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it enough for it to completely deter my dream. I just realized, this specific firm isn't for me, but there are a million other opportunities out there. And I just have to keep exploring those opportunities until I find out what's the right one for me. But, I don't believe in taking one experience or even 2 or 3 experiences and letting that dictate, your future or your path.
Where in the USA were you located at that time?
So I have to put my city on blast. That law firm was back in Cincinnati. Yeah, and it was a large law firm. And I think for me, the job was where I was kind of sitting at a desk all day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I didn't find the work to be interesting. I wasn't like inspired by it. And also the firm itself like wasn't diverse at all. I think there was only like one other Black attorney, and environments like that just don't really work for me.
What was the shift for you? And then how did you start realizing, wow, I'm interested in sports and entertainment. There's a place for me in this arena.
So it's a great question. So after that summer, after my first year of law school, that was the summer after my first year. And then I went back to DC. I went to law school in DC, went back to DC for my second year of law school. And then I got an internship working for NBC and completely loved that. That was like complete opposite of what I'd been doing all summer. And I was working for the TV show Dateline. And it was just really cool. I got to go on like shoots, got to talk to producers about different like segment ideas, show ideas, got to do research, legal research on really cool things. So it was a complete shift from, being at this large law firm to working for NBC. And I was like, okay, I think this entertainment thing is something that I really like, and that it's a lot more interesting.
What kind of legal research goes into producing or putting on a show like Dateline? I mean, I know, but can you walk us through maybe something that opened up your eyes to, wow, I could do more of this?
A sample segment on Dateline, they may be investigating a particular trial that happened, 10 years ago. And so there's a lot of legal research that needs to go into finding information about that trial, pulling up records from that trial, doing research on the laws pertaining to that trial. And also just in terms of drafting documents. So, when we're interviewing people, we had to make sure they were solid release forms so that, we could air them on television. They couldn't come back later and try to sue the network. So there are actually a lot of different legal things that go into producing and putting on a show.
Yeah, I remember when I was an intern at CBS, I interned at one summer in their news department. I don't know if this is legal, but it's something like standards and practices. Is that part of the legal department?
It is.
Okay. Yeah. It is. And I was just wow, you don't realize that there's such a legal foundation for a lot of the things that we love,
Absolutely. It's in the laws in every facet of everything we do, and especially the entertainment industry.
Oh, so let's get into that. Sports and entertainment. How did you define that as your niche?
After I spent that time working at NBC, that was kind of my first foray into entertainment space. And after doing that, after graduating from law school, I moved back to New York and worked at a firm there where, unfortunately, I didn't really get to do much entertainment work when I was practicing in New York. So when I finally did decide, I really want to put 100% forward towards this entertainment thing, I bought a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. Didn't know anybody, didn't have a job, didn't have a car, and just moved out here to really try to immerse myself in the entertainment space. So I actually went back to school because I felt like I didn't have a strong enough knowledge base of the entertainment industry yet to really say, I'm an entertainment lawyer. And people can still pop out of the sky and say I'm an entertainment lawyer at any time of of the day. But I just wanted to make sure that I had as much knowledge about the industry as possible before I kind of just jumped out there. So I actually went back to school and did a very truncated program at UCLA. It was a program on the television and film industry that really taught everything about what it takes to create a television show and to create a movie, so that I didn't just understand the industry from a legal perspective, but also from a practical perspective and knowing all the nuts and bolts that go into the entertainment industry. So after that program, at that point, I felt like, okay, now I feel like I get it. I'm by no means an expert, but I get it enough to start kind of jumping out there. And once I felt comfortable to jump out there, I kind of wanted to figure out what my niche was, because entertainment law is such a vast, it's such a big word. And I tell students this all the time. If you say you want to do entertainment, that's great. But there's so many different facets of the entertainment industry. There's fashion, there's music, there's TV, there's, digital. There's so many different things. And so for me, I had to decide, what do I really want to focus on? And so I kind of just start putting together different areas that really I found most interesting. And that was the television industry. That was the film industry. That was social media, and sports. And so I kind of added all of those different topics together to really kind of put myself out there as someone who focuses on social media, sport, television, film, and kind of went from there.
So let's back up for 1 second, because I feel like this is a very pivotal moment in your journey, and something that a lot of us dream drivers often contemplate is making that big move. And New York to LA, one-way trip, a one-way ticket. I remember I interviewed, her name is Julissa Calderon, and she is a BuzzFeed. She's like, if you ever seen like the BuzzFeed videos, like things Dominicans say, like she's one of the, she's one of like the, what do you call them? Not cat. She's one of the producers, and she's also talent. And she talked about how she moved from Miami to LA and not realizing that she would stay there. Like she went there for an audition and didn't come back. Were you nervous to make that move?
Nervous is probably an understatement. I was definitely nervous because I had a nice life in New York. I had like really good girlfriends, great social life, great place, and I took a jump into the unknown. And I had visited LA before for like 2 days here, 3 days there, but like living somewhere and visiting somewhere are two completely different things. And so I was very nervous. I still remember that one-way flight like it was yesterday. And I remember getting my apartment off Craigslist. I hadn't even like seen it in person. I just got it off Craigslist. And like, I was hoping that when I got to LA, like it matched the photos. Like, I was just like, please, let's just match the photo. It did. Okay. Yay, luckily. So in that step, but yeah, it was hard though. I'm definitely not gonna like sugarcoat it and be like, I bought a one-way ticket and everything was great. Like it was hard because California is so far from like everything that I knew, going to college in New York, going to law school in DC, from Cincinnati, like it's far from everyone I knew, everything I knew. And also just like the culture in LA is so different from like the culture on the East Coast that it was a difficult transition.
I just went to LA for the first time in September, the beginning of September, for a wedding. And I was just like, wow, like it was nice though, because it was my first time there. So I'm like, yo, it's so chill out here versus, on the East Coast where it's, like, I like the energy. Like, I feel like nothing beats that vibe and that energy you get when you're in New York City. But there's just a different type of energy in LA.
It's so different. And yeah, the energy like kind of threw me for a loop. Because honestly, when I got out here, I didn't call it chill. I called it like lazy. I thought people here were like lazy. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have like 4 jobs like people in New York? I'm just like, I don't get it. But it was a difficult transition, honestly. And I tell people this all the time. When I first moved to LA, I actually hated it. I thought the city was trash for like it took like maybe a year and a half, 2 years to be like, okay, I think I can do LA. But like the first year, every day I was ready to go back to New York. I was like,
what made you stay then?
Because I did feel like there were a lot of opportunities in LA. And it's different about LA as opposed to New York. Like the thing about New York, like everyone's a hustler. In LA, like everyone is not a hustler. And so if you are a hustler, like you can get ahead easier and quicker than you can in New York. Like, so if you have like a hustler mentality or just a really good work ethic, it's easier to move forward and to get ahead than it is in New York. And there's just a lot for the entertainment industry. I just think there are a lot more opportunities here than New York. And so that also is kind of what has kept me here.
So how did you get your first gig or your first client in the sports and entertainment industry out there in LA?
Great question. So my first client actually came from another lawyer who was a friend. When I had made the decision to do sports and entertainment law, I kind of sent out an email to like all my contacts like, hey, I'm doing entertainment law now. And one of my friends, an attorney back in New York, told me that he had a good friend who was a comedian who was looking for a new lawyer, and she needed help with some contracts and a trademark. And
Tiffany Haddish? I'm just playing.
she needed help with like some legal work. And so actually another attorney, a friend in New York, referred me my very first client.
So what type of work were you doing for this client? Or like what kind of, I don't want to say problems, but what were you realizing about, people in the entertainment and sports industry? Like what were they missing? Like what kind of legal drama were they coming to you for?
Okay, so a lot of different things. The thing about a lot of people in the entertainment industry is they get the creative side, but they don't get the business side. They do the creative side very, very well, but they don't really understand everything that goes into them as a business. And as an entertainer, as an athlete, you are a business and you are a brand. And if you don't understand how that branding works and how that business works, you're going to be at a deficit. And so a lot of the initial clients that were coming to me, were coming to me to clean stuff up. They didn't want to hire an attorney when they first started, or they wanted to try to figure it out by themselves, or they didn't, sign any paperwork. And so then they were coming to me to like clean things up on the back end when things went left or when things went awry. And that's one of the biggest issues I see with a lot of people in entertainment and entrepreneurship is that they want to skimp or they want to overlook the legal side of things when they are starting out. But then that comes back to bite them, later on. And they usually need someone to come and clean up a mess because they kind of help create by not doing their due diligence, from the beginning. So a lot of people are coming to me to clean things up. A lot of people are coming to me to help protect their brand. So we're talking about like trademarks in terms of like trademarking, their stage name or their company name, or a logo they came up with. And so a lot of people are coming to me with that as well. But another issue that I was seeing with a lot of people then, and what I see now also is, once again, waiting until it's too late. So, you've been running this business, you've been using this logo for years, you didn't want to spend the money to trademark it. And now when you come to me to trademark it, oh, wow, look, someone else already did it, So
even though even though it was in use with your client, they were able to trademark?
Right, so they are. So, so the trademark process can be kind of a very convoluted, complicated process. But yes, even if I'm using a logo today and I like write it in my notebook, someone else could still, go out and trademark it tomorrow. As soon as, I always tell clients, or I just tell people in general, if you have an idea, if you have a logo, if you have a business name, trademark it as soon as possible. Also, the process in and of itself can take up to a year. So it's a lengthy process as well. But that's another issue I saw with a lot of people also. And then just the contractual side of things. A lot of people signing agreements that they didn't understand what they were reading, coming back to me later on to ask me, well, what does this mean? Or, I think I'm in breach of this and now I'm in trouble because of it. And we're going over it. And it's like they didn't even understand half of what they signed. Which is also problematic.
So, I'm nosy, but you don't have to give specifics or client names. But thinking about a cleanup, right? Let's talk about a cleanup that you helped with that is not trademark specific, but more like contract related. Like, is there something that we creatives really need to be looking out for, like certain types of terms, whatever, like that can really mess us up if we're not diligent about spotting like that in our contract?
Two of the main things I always tell people to look out for in contracts is, number one, the compensation clause, and number two, any language pertaining to like terminating the agreement or being able to walk away from the agreement. So number one, with regards to the money, the compensation, that's one of the biggest clauses in any agreement. How are you getting paid? When are you getting paid? How much are you getting paid? And sometimes in agreements, so all of those questions aren't always answered, which can be problematic. That language should be as specific as possible. And also with regard to when there are late payments, because I work with a lot of people who, the contract said they were going to get paid $500,000 and it's been 6 months since they've been paid, but there was nothing in the contract that said, this is what happens if the payment is late. So anything pertaining to money, how you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, what happens if the payment is late, all of those questions, and there are like 10 of them that need to be answered with regards to money in a contract. The second most important clause in an agreement is with regard to termination. You always want to make sure that you have the ability to leave if something goes wrong. You never want to be stuck in a situation that's not working in your favor or for your benefit. So I'm sure we've all seen like the BET movies or like any movies where someone's stuck in a contract where they can't get out of it, like, oh, I have 2 more years left. Like, no, you want to make sure that there is something in the contract that if certain things are triggered or certain events happen, you can walk away from the contract. You want to be able to end it. You want to be able to walk away. And so that's another very important clause that, everyone should always look out for in a contract and, make sure they're aware of. And I could talk about contracts all day, but I would say those are like the two of the most important.
What about for social media influencers? So I know you co-own the management company, the Presley Group, right? And you work with social media influencers. What type of things specific to that realm are very important to look out for, especially when it comes to like intellectual property and the usage of faces? I feel like pictures are a big thing. Like, you might take a picture for a brand and next thing you know, you see the brand using it on their website or using it to sell products, whereas it wasn't created for that. What can you advise in that realm?
So social media influencer agreements are very similar to like talent agreements. Mm-hmm. So agreements with like actors, actresses, things like that. So a lot of the clauses are somewhat similar in terms of like the amount of money you're going to be paid, and termination clauses, things like that. I think some of the other important clauses with regards to social media influencer agreements is exclusivity. So that's something, influencers should look out for. A lot of brands sometimes, especially nowadays, want to make sure that, hey, if you post for me, I want to make sure that you don't post for any of my competitors for like the next 2 years. And if that particular company is only paying you, let's say like $200 to post, is it really worth signing a document that says they have exclusive relationship over your social media feed for 2 years? I would say no. But exclusivity clauses are really big when it comes to social media influencers. Also language, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, they have specific language with regards to what social media influencers have to post on their feed if they are getting paid to post. So, you may see the hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored. There are very specific rules that the FTC has with regards to certain disclaimers influencers have to make. And all influencers should be very familiar with those FTC guidelines. And social media influencers, it's becoming like such a huge area of marketing, business, branding, and entertainment. Yeah. I mean, some of these social media influencer agreements that I've seen can be like 20 pages, 25 pages long.
Written by the brands or what the, like, is it better? This is a good question. When let's say I am working with a brand, right? Who should make the agreement? Or should it be something where you just sign off on the brand stock, whatever the template they give everyone? Or is it better as an influencer to come with your own contract? I always wonder that, like who sends the first contract?
It's always the brands.
Okay.
So it's always the brands who send the agreement. Because they also have like specific things that they want to include in the agreement. Like they have some brands have very specific language about what they want you to post. Like some brands will say, this is the exact language I want you to put under your photo. And I want you to post this photo on October 5th, 2008. So some of them have very specific requirements. So the brands are always the ones that provide the agreement, and then you just negotiate it, or redline it, revise it, on your end as an influencer or through your attorney.
Was there ever a legal mishap that you weren't able to help your client with? Like just something that they had to just take a L for?
I'm definitely not, I can't fix everything. So, I mean, even recently, I can think back to a case I worked on earlier this year, where it was a production team and they had been producing projects together for like years and they split. They wanted to divvy up the projects and like the work they had done. And it was so complicated and they just had never signed any paperwork in the beginning. And I just really wasn't able to like clean it up in a way that they wanted it to be cleaned up.
But you know what? I think that's a good lesson because as you said, like, you know, they started it and they didn't have agreements in place. And to be honest, Jaia, like one of the reasons why one of my friends was just telling me like, Raina, you're so scared to like build a team for Dreams and Drive. You need a team, right? And I know I need a team, but the biggest thing that I'm thinking about is long term, I know I want Dreams and Drive to be really big, right? And it's like, I know before I even think about getting a team, though, I need to have those legal documents in place so that we're all clear on what our roles are and what would just happen. Because I'm always thinking about like, what would happen if this like gets, you know, if I'm the next Oprah Winfrey, right? So what are some core things that you think any creative right now, solo entrepreneurs really need to make sure they're having in place, especially if you one day know that your company is going to grow bigger than you?
You want agreements with anyone that you work with, whether they're like simple work made for hire agreements, freelance agreements, actual, you know, co-production agreements. Any time you're working with someone, you want an agreement in place and you want that agreement to be pretty rock solid. Also, you want agreements. You want like releases in place for instance, like interviews that you're doing. You want to make sure that, you know, anyone you're interviewing, that they're signing releases so that, let's say, you know, NBC comes to you tomorrow and says, hey, we want to pick up your podcast, you know, air these episodes on NBC.com. You want to make sure that you have releases for every single person you've interviewed because NBC is going to ask for that. They're going to make sure everyone is on board. Everyone has signed off to be a part of this podcast, and they're not going to come back later and sue NBC, or ask for money or any type of compensation. So you want to make sure that, you know, when you're interviewing anyone, that you have like a solid release in place. So you just have the ability to do whatever you want to do, like with those interviews. And also, you just want to make sure that all your IP is good, your trademarks, any copyrights, things like that. And then just like the business side of things, you know, making sure that, you know, you have an LLC in place or an S Corp, whatever type of business entity that you think works best for your company. You want to make sure that that's properly set up as well. And a lot of people I meet starting out who are solos, you know, one of the biggest issues they have is budget. They say, listen, I don't have $10,000 to pay a retainer. I don't have $15,000 to put towards a retainer. And don't ever let money be a deterrent toward making sure that your company is properly protected, because there are still ways to get what you need to get done without putting in $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, even for contracts, you know. And I've had this happen with some of my clients. They say, look, I don't have a big budget. And I say, you know, that's fine. How about you get started on drafting something and I'll come and clean it up, you know? So you don't have to spend a lot of money, you know, paying me 10 hours to do work. I can maybe just do 5 hours to do work, to come in on the end and clean up the contract and fill in the holes and edit it. Also, you know, so there are things you can do, you know what I mean, to kind of help alleviate some of the costs that come with, you know, hiring a lawyer. There are definitely ways around it, but now, like I said, never let money be like the reason why you don't properly protect your company.
Yeah, I think I interviewed another lawyer on the show, Art Steele, back in 2017, and she was just talking about like that's one of probably the most important investments that you don't ever want to skimp on to. Like, you know, like you can sacrifice, well, not sacrifice, but you know, like if it takes like even $500 to just do something, make sure you do something, because it can really bite you in the butt. Like if you don't, and you're not protected, or someone like come in and like take your trademark because you didn't do it, you know? So there's so many things like people, if you're going to start a business, you have to know that you're going to have to invest in something. Businesses aren't free to run. Okay. Yeah. So what are some like entrepreneurial lessons that you had to go through that have really, you know, impacted you or just help you learn about yourself, about what it takes to build a business?
Ooh, I learned a lot. Entrepreneurship, like and I tell people this all the time, it's not easy at all. You know that, I know that. But I think sometimes it's glorified, you know, in a way where it's like, oh, you can like create your own hours and, you know, all these like, I feel like sometimes it's glorified in terms of people talking about like the pluses, but there are a lot of minuses that come with it. There's no like blueprint for it. And I really wish that like every school taught an entrepreneurship class because, you know, by the time we spend all this money going to college and grad school, and it's like some of us don't even know the basics of like how to run a business. For me, a lot of it was like winging it. When I started my company, I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't know how to create a website. I didn't know any of these things. And you would think after all those years of school, I should have known something, but I didn't know any of that stuff. So I was like winging it. I think one of the biggest, or some of the biggest lessons I've learned on my entrepreneurial journey is how to be creative. You know, when I started out, I didn't want to spend like a ton of money, you know, marketing or like, you know, doing things like that because I was having money come in. You know, I only had a couple clients when I started. So it's like I had to be very mindful of money. And so I had to get creative, and I had to think of like creative ways to get my name out there, creative ways to like push the business. And so it really like tested me and my creativity in terms of like figuring out ways how to not spend a lot of money to like market myself and like brand myself. It's definitely pushed my creativity in a huge way. And then also it's taught me how to be resilient, because I've taken a lot of L's and I've bounced back. And it's taught me like I'm stronger. Ooh, a lot.
What's one L? One L you want to share with us that you think our drivers can relate to?
I may have to think about this a little bit. What I'm willing to share, because there are L's I take that like nobody even like the world doesn't even know about.
Okay, but the general theme is it's not going to be easy, right? There's valleys in every journey. There's peaks in every journey, but that's what makes it the journey, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade it for like sitting at a desk all day building someone else's empire. Even though the journey has been a little longer than what I would have hoped for, everything like worked out, you know, in the timeline it's supposed to. So.
Why do you say that? Like, did you go into this thinking that, like, you know, by year 3, like, I guess I don't know, like, the legal world.
Absolutely.
Like, what does the legal world's journey normally look like in comparison to yours?
I mean, I just would have thought, also because I'm just like a little OCD, I just would have thought like year 3, like I'm just going to be, you know, bringing in like 10 million, not 10 million, but, you know, just like really kind of killing the game. And I wasn't. It took a while. It takes a while. Because it was 2 things for me. Like, it was like, I was not only starting a business, but I was also like having just moved to like a new city. You know what I mean? So it was like a lot of things that, you know, and it's like, I didn't really, and I was on my own, you know, it's not like I was in LA with like a support system. I don't have any family out here. I didn't have any friends out here, you know? So it's like, I didn't have, it's, you know, people to like bounce things off of, or like a support system, which I think is helpful for like entrepreneurs. And I didn't have any of that. And I was really just kind of like winging it. And I also didn't really know a lot of attorneys who were entrepreneurs at the time either. I had a lot of friends who are lawyers, but they were all working for firms or all working, you know, for the government. So I didn't even have like other attorneys when I started to like bounce things off of or like ask questions to, you know, it was kind of a very, I would say it was kind of like a lonely journey at first, you know, just really trying to figure it all out.
I was just reading an article, I forgot where, but like the author was talking about how as a, you know, as someone in the entrepreneurship space, especially when you're moving to a different city, just finding that friend circle. They were like finding friends after 25, right? Like it's not as easy as when you're younger, when you're in college. So then like, what kind of advice would you have for other people in that realm? Like, how did you go about finding a community, finding a support system, and getting those resources that would keep you motivated in those times where you were just like, all right, should I go back to New York or not?
When I came out here, I like tried to join different organizations. I thought that was helpful. For me, specific to my industry, I joined like different like bar organizations, legal organizations. And also for me, what I found to be really helpful, and now I have like a great circle of friends out here, but what I found to be really helpful is I would go to events by myself. And it really, I didn't have a choice because I didn't have anyone to go with, but I still even do that to this day. Like, even though I have a lot of friends here, I still do that to this day. Like, I will go to things by myself. Like, I could care less. I feel like that is the best way to meet people when you're by yourself and you're forced to talk to somebody that you don't know. You know, when you go to events with other people, like 9 times out of 10, you're just going to talk to those people that you came with all night. Whereas when you go by yourself, like it forces you to like come out of your comfort zone, and it forces you to like talk to people and meet people, you know, and I always found that to be like really helpful as well. Just kind of like putting yourself out there.
So one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the importance of representation. I know that's something that's really pivotal and important in your work. Why do you think it's so important for us to have representation, especially in the sports and entertainment industry, when we're talking about lawyers, when we're talking about having like Black agents really being the team behind some of not just famous people, but just people who are persons of color?
It's really important to have representation because, as I mentioned before, a lot of creatives, a lot of professional athletes, like they do their job really well, or they do their specialty really well, which is, you know, they play a specific sport, they specialize in, you know, acting or producing or directing. They do their skill set very well, but they don't always fully understand all of the logistics that go into the business side. And you really won't necessarily expect them to because they didn't go to school for that. But there are people who did, the agents, the attorneys, the managers, the, publicists, the financial advisors. And so I think it's important to like tap into those skill sets of other people to like fill in the holes where things may be missing on your end. None of us are like well-versed in everything. Even me, like I need someone to help with the money side of things. I'm not good with money. Whatever you're lacking in, those people who are your team, who are your reps, they can fill in the holes and make sure that you're properly protected across the board. As a Black woman who works in Hollywood, I have and will always be an advocate for there to be more Black attorneys, more Black agents, more Black managers, more Black publicists representing a lot of your favorite people you see on TV and on screen. Because I think when we're talking about diversity in the entertainment industry, which is such a hot topic right now, oftentimes we only talk about it from the perspective of the people on screen, and we don't really talk about it from the perspective of the people actually making the deals and negotiating the deals, who are really their true power players behind the scenes. And there's still a huge gap, massive gap with regards to what those people actually look like.
So what's the barrier then? Like for people who are diverse, who are trying to get into those industries, but feel like they're locked out or feel like they don't have the same access to opportunities?
You know, on the attorney side, there are definitely more than enough Black entertainment attorneys. You know, there are a good number of managers too. I think one of the issues is a lot of people in entertainment and sports still have a brainwashed mentality in terms of thinking like, you know, I'm going to get further ahead if I have a Jewish lawyer. I'm going to get further ahead if I have a white man, you know what I mean, on my team as opposed to a Black man or a Black woman. And these are Black folks who think this. I've heard it firsthand from Black people who work in entertainment. I have friends and colleagues who've heard it firsthand. I've had a Black man tell me to my face, "Oh, you know, I don't need your services. Like I have a Jewish attorney. Like I'm good." I think there needs to be a shift in the mentality of the people who have, you know, the opportunity to hire attorneys, agents, managers, and publicists to realize that the Jewish man isn't always the one who's going to get the job done. Black women are just as qualified, and so are Black men, so are anyone of color in these industries.
And there are certain nuances too, right? It's like there's certain things that I'm not saying that like a white man won't understand. Well, probably won't understand everything, but there are certain things that I feel like you have that person's best interest at mind, but you also understand, or you have the lived experience of what the impact of not advocating for something can mean.
Absolutely. And it's like in 2018 where, you know, we all claim that we're woke. I feel like in this year more than ever, or more than ever recently, I won't say ever, you know, so many entertainers and so many athletes want to be like pseudo activists and be a spokesperson for our people and for the culture. But it's like, okay, and I'm not going to name any names, although I could. A lot of these folks, you know, who want to be for the culture, It's like, if that's the platform you're speaking on, but then you don't have anyone from the culture on your actual team, it's like, there's kind of a disconnect there. You know what I mean? Like, because the people on your team are the ones who help you make some of the most pivotal decisions with regards to your career and where you're performing and who you're speaking with and what you're doing. And if no one from the culture that you claim to love so much and be an advocate for looks like the culture, there's a problem there.
I love that you said that, because it's like, X and X might be able to get the job done, but does X and X really care when no. That person's, it's
no.
Do you want somebody who cares or somebody who gets the job done? That's a really important question people got to ask themselves.
And the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm not going to say all, white managers, publicists, and agents don't care, but I'll say, based on my experience, the bulk of them care about that money, and they care about the paycheck. Do they genuinely care about your culture? No. Do they even know anything about your culture? No. Like, if we're going to keep it real. So,
yeah. But, that's not to say that you might get a Black agent you might have like a person of color who's working in your team who doesn't care either. But the thing is, I think the general thing is you really need to be asking those right questions and getting the people on your team who care. So when do you think, or what are some really important tips that you would give our dream drivers, questions you should be asking, things you should be looking into when you're finding that it's legal representation? Like, what are just some good, like, red flags to look out for, or green flags to look out for too?
So I think one of the biggest things you want to ask with regard to legal representation is you just want to make sure, like, the attorney's experience and expertise matches, like, what you're actually doing. For me, like, I don't do anything in music, really. So, I have a lot of artists who come to me, music artists who come to me, and, they want me to review recording agreements, all of this, all of that. But it's like, if you kind of did your research on me, you would know that my thing is really kind of like TV, film, and sports. Those are questions they should be asking me before they're even offering to, like, cut a check. Like, what other musicians have you worked with? Like, what artists have you worked with? And the thing is, like, I'm fine. I'll just tell you, like, listen, I don't really do music. I'm going to refer you to some colleagues on this matter. But I think that's one of the most important questions to ask, to make sure that, like, whatever attorney you're working with has expertise and experience and kind of like what you're looking for. So ask, like, the nitty-gritty questions about what other artists have you worked with? Can you give me some sample cases you've handled, maybe without even revealing names? But you want to make sure that they're, like, well-versed in whatever it is that, you're trying to do. I think that's one of the most important questions. And also you want to make sure, like, that it's a good fit personality-wise as well, especially if it's going to be a long-term relationship. Like, if it's just going to be one thing where you just need someone to look at a contract, where it's going to be very transactional, I think that's, fine. But if it's going to be, like, a long-term relationship, you want to make sure, like, there is it's a personality match. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to work with an attorney who you may think, excuse my French, may end up, you think it's an asshole. You want to work with somebody who you get along with, and I've had to personally drop clients in the past who the personality it wasn't a good fit. Either they were too difficult, it just wasn't a good fit. You kind of want to gauge as much as possible personality traits, if it's a really good match personality wise in the beginning as well.
So thinking about, reflecting upon your own journey and where you're going, Jaia, what's something if you had a magic wand that you would change about this industry?
So if I could change anything, I think kind of to piggyback off what I said with regards to diversity, I would diversify the industry. As Black people, a lot of us are on screen and we are on the field or we are on the court, but we don't really have, like, an ownership stake in a lot of these industries. We don't own any football teams. We don't own any basketball teams. We don't own any studios, So I would really change that so that it's not just diverse on the screen or on the field, but that there's diversity with regard to, like, the executives, the owners, the presidents, the lawyers, the power players who are making the decisions. That is the number one thing I would change.
I feel like I know for people who are listening, like, you guys, get out there and really, really think about ways that you can create, create opportunities that you can one day be in that ownership position. Because when you're in the owner, you're the boss, right? And you can help dictate,
Absolutely.
A lot of things that right now we have no control over. And I feel like it's time that we start taking back control and start taking back ownership, as you said. Jaia, as we wind down, right? Tell me, what keeps you going when you feel like giving up? Like, what's next for you? Like, what's on the horizon?
So I definitely have a lot on my plate. Aside from practicing law full time, I teach at UCLA. I teach 2 courses at UCLA. And I also, when we were talking about diversity, recently launched this website, diverserepresentation.com, which is a database of Black entertainment and sports agents, attorneys, managers, and publicists. I have a lot going on, a lot on my plate. And I think over, this time next year, I want the website and the database to grow tenfold and to be able to have initiatives and programs to help create more opportunities for people of color who want to be agents, who want to be managers, who want to be owners, so that we do have a stake in all facets of the sports and entertainment industry. I want my practice to continue to grow. There's a lot going on, but I want to continue to just grow, build, and help creating opportunities for people who look like me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a fun conversation. I know I learned so much. I have so many notes on my little pad right now. But let's go into our lightning round. All right. This part of the interview, I'm going to give you a prompt and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. Okay. And we're sticking with our whole dreams and drive metaphor.
Okay.
All right. What's funny? Before we get into that, I'm just thinking about how I've said this. Whenever I come to the lightning round part of the interview, I feel like I'm a game show host because I've said this so many times. I have the same, I got to switch it up. I got to get a new script for the lightning round. All right. All right. The first word is park.
Stagnant.
Reverse.
Backwards. Stagnant again. Oh, I need better answers here. Yeah, backwards,
right.
Stagnant.
Neutral.
Apathetic.
And last but not least, drive.
Forward.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So Jaia, tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
They need to have faith. You need to have faith. You need to have a belief, a strong belief that things will always, turn around, get better, improve. So you need faith. You need stamina. You need to make sure that, you have the ability to bounce back because there are going to be a lot of punches and hits that you end up taking. So you need to make sure that you just have the stamina to stay strong, stay standing, stay bouncing back. And you need to have a little fight in you. You need to be able to stick up for yourself, stick up for your dream. Those people who are successful have a little fire in them, have a little fight in them.
Do you feel like, I just get the sense from just talking to you for the past hour, right, that you have a lot of hustle, you have a lot of drive. Do you ever feel like people come at you negatively, especially being a Black woman with so much hustle, so much determination? How do you fight? I'm not saying fight the haters, but fight that negative energy. Because I'm sure people are like, she's always doing them. You know what I mean? It's always, it's when you're ambitious, it's well, I can't just be ambitious. Why? What do you want me to be? Just, complacent? How do you deal with that? Or how do you manage that?
Absolutely. As a Black woman who has a lot of hustle, it's you get it from all sides. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are vocal about things, and there are people who, you also have to watch out for people who don't say anything. You know what I mean? Who are the silent ones who are
what
kind
you
of
thinking,
watching. What you right. Or who you hear from secondhand information. For me, one thing is I know a lot of people and I have a lot of friends, but I keep my circle super tight. Mm-hmm. So I just don't believe in sharing. I don't believe in oversharing. I don't overshare my dreams. I don't overshare my next move. I tell my parents and maybe one other person, that's it, and then when something launches, it launches, and that's what it is. But I think it's important to keep your dreams close to your chest. Keep your plans close to your chest I'm fine taking like the hate or like the negative comments or like even like the racist comments, all of that, because I also like lean heavily on like, and think heavily about like my people and like everything that like my ancestors have been through. Like what I'm going through right now or what I have gone through doesn't remotely compare to like what they've gone through. You know what I mean? So I just like lean heavily on that, like knowing that, I mean, my parents grew up during Jim Crow in the South. That's not that long ago. Just knowing what they've been through and like what my grandparents have been through, it's like, how can I not try to be successful? How can I not try to like shake the haters? Who I do it for is I do it for them, and I like do it for my people. And, you know, and I also just always want to be like an inspiration for other Black women coming up, other Black girls coming up, and anything I can do to like be an inspiration for them. Because I think we are our biggest cheerleaders. I think Black women, I think we're just really, we can be great supporters of each other. And I just want to be that for like other people coming up, you know, behind me.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 187 with Jaia Thomas. I hope that you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you all enjoyed this episode, if you really felt like you learned a lot about the law and how you can protect your business, please, please, please share this with a friend. You can share on social media. We are Dreams and Drive across the board, and you can also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive. I really love when you guys screenshot and share the Instagram stories, post something on Twitter, tag us on Facebook. Please just help us grow the community. And if wherever you're listening, if you're not subscribed, make sure that you are. You'll get notifications every time we have a new episode. And if you're listening in on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, please leave us a rating and review. I don't have any new reviews to read this week, but if you want to hear your review on next week's episode, make sure you leave a rating and leave a review, and I'll definitely read it. Don't forget, guys, as I mentioned earlier, we are doing a Dreams and Drive listener feedback survey, and I want to hear what you guys think about Dreams and Drive content and how we can make it even better in 2019. So if you want to help us out and leave some feedback, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/survey. That's dreamsanddrive.com/survey. And remember, at the end of the month, I'm going to randomly select 2 of the people who filled out the survey to win Dreams and Drive Visa gift cards. They'll be personalized. They'll have the Dreams and Drive logo on it. Yeah, it's really dope. So if you want to enter to win, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/survey. Thank you for all the support that you guys have shown. We are almost sold out of Dreams and Drive gear. So if you want to cop something before it's gone, and I don't even know if I'm going to do gear again, so make sure you get something now. Go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop to get gear and to buy gear. And you can use the code New Year's for an extra 10% off. And something that I haven't pushed, but I want to remind you guys, is that I'm available for one-on-one marketing or branding consultations. So if you feel like you have a brand idea, marketing problem, or even just want to do an idea brainstorming session with me, I encourage you to go to dreamsanddrive.com/book and check out my packages. You can also book something directly there. I had a great session last week with a client, and it reminded me that I need to share this gift with more people. And now that I have the time, I feel like I'd love to do more one-on-one work with dream drivers specifically. So go to dreamsanddrive.com/book to check out my packages and see if you're interested in booking some time to work with me. And lastly, if you haven't listened to episode 186 with Meg and Asha, I highly encourage you guys go back and listen to that. It was such a great start to the year. And Megan talks about how we can shift from an am I mentality to an I am mentality. That mindset shift is so important, and that is what's going to get us through the year. So make sure you go back and listen. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, guys, and we'll chat again in episode 188. Bye.